off and running. So this is our fourth Deep Dive 2 session together. As always, I'll start us off by situating today's work within the larger sequencing of our work and learning for Deep Dive 2. So we spent some time during the last 2 weeks, sessions 2 and 3, talking about the skills list in the module, and that really focused us in on instructional cycle 2. So I have my handy copy of the tables of contents, if you will, or the workflows for instructional cycle 1, instructional cycle 2, and instructional cycle 3. So we were living in instructional cycle 2 when we were spending our time looking at standards-driven skills lists. And that's what the content in instructional cycle 2 focuses participants in on. This week marks our shift into instructional cycle 3, which is going to take us a little deeper into the mini tasks. So we're shifting focus from those standards-driven and customized skills lists into standards-driven and customized mini tasks or instruction to carry out those skills lists for the kids. And because of that, today we're shifting into mini tasks, and we're going to focus during our session 4 on really looking at the different foundational content in the courses that can help us as learners and also as coaches to both become really clear on what aligned and standards-driven instruction is, and also what resources we can use to coach others on that topic. So today we'll take a closer look at a lot of the course sessions and or 2 course sessions really, and then several different resources. And my goal is to make sure you guys have enough time to explore some of the mini task collections, because I know that's something that can just really, it's so easy. I do it too, leave it to the last minute. And so I want to offer an opportunity to spend some time digging into the collections. My hope would be that you can leave tonight identifying either a whole collection or a couple of mini tasks that you know you could bring back to that focus PLC for this deep dive, or even to a different one that you think would be a good fit for whatever it is you find.
Just a heads up there. Just a heads up there. I had a teacher say to me today, she loves the mini tasks and she uses them all the time.
Excellent.
So it was just sort of a one-off comment, and I just went, "Oh wow, that's fantastic!" Yeah. So
well, I put a pin in that because I want to talk a little bit later about why they're so revelatory to a lot of teachers. So that's a good place to start, a good place to return to in a little bit. Okay. So let's get into reflecting on the homework from last week, which was to head into that instructional cycle 3, again, focus on the mini tasks now, and take a closer look at sessions 5 and session 6. So session 5 does ask teachers to select a rubric, and then the substantial part of that session asks them to analyze the sequencing of their mini tasks to ensure that the mini tasks themselves are carrying out and explicitly teaching and formatively assessing the skills lists, and that all the component parts of the, or separate rather, parts of the mini tasks are actually moving students to practice and demonstrate, if not mastery, at least evidence that they're moving toward mastery of the skill at hand. Then session 6 takes a deeper dive into looking at the alignment of the instructional sequence overall to the teaching task. So what I'll do, as always, when we start up our deep dive sessions, is I'm going to give you a few minutes just to go in and review those sessions for yourself, take a look at your past notes from when you took a look at them for your homework, and identify, let me pop in, same questions we use at the beginning of our sessions now, since we know the key professional learning content in this instructional cycle is focused on the instructional sequence of mini tasks and how mini tasks are explicit instruction and formative assessment. I want you to head back into sessions 5 and 6 and think, okay, what's the critical content that you think teachers need to understand in order to come away from these sessions with a clear understanding of what these mini tasks are. So let me pop that in the chat. Give it a couple minutes to individually head back into the sessions and identify what's the critical content teachers need to understand from sessions 5 and 6. So that's in the chat. And Marina, are you driving today?
I'm driving. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I'm driving. I promise I'm doing it safely. I'm not even looking at my phone, but I'm hoping to get to a place where I'm not mobile soon. But
Okay,
yes,
perfect. For now, then I won't hold you to writing in the chat or anything. But you can just join the whole group conversation after we take a few minutes here.
Thank you. And then if I don't get stable, then I'll go back in and listen to the recording and check things out.
Perfect. Okay, so let's put a few minutes on the clock to take a look at sessions 5 and 6. And then I'm just going to ask you to do a private chat with a partner. How about Jane and Rob, you guys chat, and then Nada and I will chat about just what's the critical content, like critical sections in sessions 5 and 6 that you think teachers need. And then we'll do a whole group debrief. Do you guys want me to stop sharing my screen so you have full control of yours? Okay, find a stopping point and go ahead and, if you haven't yet, just share, let's say 2 critical areas that you think teachers will absolutely need to hone in on from sessions 5 and 6 to understand what a standards-driven instructional sequence is. And then we'll do a verbal debrief.
So what did you just say then, Megan? Sorry, I was reading something. Sorry.
Yeah. Just share with, in your case, Rob, just do a quick private chat and just share 2 either critical or pieces or areas like content from the courses, or 2 activities that you feel for sure teachers will need in order to understand what mini tasks are and why we care about them.
Okay.
So let's just chat as a group here. What were the 2 areas of sessions 5 or session 6, if you were able to make it there, that you felt were very high leverage, that teachers would need in order to understand what standards-driven instruction really is? And you can just verbally share. No one? Okay. Do you want me to start?
I'll do it. I'll go first.
Sorry. Wasn't sure who was going to be.
You know what? This is why I should do the assigning, like partner one business. It makes it easier.
It's okay.
Sorry.
I just,
I like it lazy.
that's all right. Okay.
Thanks, Rob.
I'll choose one. In terms of say activities, I think that or both Jane and myself we're looking at having teachers analyze the mini task in relation to the identified skill to make sure that it's it's aligning and they're getting what they're using. And the second aspect was the emphasizing the use of the mini tasks in formatively assessing the progress that students are making in terms of the task requirements and the standards involved in the task. So getting that alignment sort of working. Yeah.
So was it this part, the explicit instruction with formative assessment?
Yes, very much so.
I totally agree with you. I think this is not a conversation that can be had, or rather it's one that needs to be had during the collaborative planning time, both to firm up people's understandings of formative assessment and also align on purpose for it.
And there was also, right at the start of session 5, there was also actually having a look at the rubric, and I think that's a really good sort of place to start, because the exit slip said that, you have to look at and see if the rubric aligns. So I think that that's sort of another good place to start. Look at the end of where you're heading at the start.
Jane, very nice. Yeah, I wanted to hear what people's thoughts were about having this rubric embedded at the top of the session here. And first off, nicely done unpacking the exit slip as we've been doing here. And yeah, it can be really also very relevant and rooted in teachers' current context to start with the rubric and start with the evidence that they know they want to see in the final product, and then back out from there to ensure that their instructional sequence is moving kids toward that evidence. Yeah. Let's go with How about NADA? Give me one other section that stood out to you, something you felt was really high leverage in sessions 5 or 6.
Well, 5 were pretty much did me and Kristen, hit the 2 points that Jane and Rob did. For section 6, I remember I wasn't there, so I asked Kristen, and she said, in section 6, we usually link it to our module, and we kind of customize the alignment to what we have done
Mm-hmm.
in the module. So that's what we've discussed. We look at the instructional sequence and the plan, and we look at what we have done, and we analyze from there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we both agreed that on section 6, what will be valuable for teachers to look at their own work and to analyze the alignment in their work.
Yeah, and they definitely do. You're right. Yeah, so it's kind of a gradual release from really considering what an aligned mini task is, identifying how or what are the unique instructional elements specific to different disciplines, and then once you move into session 6, you're analyzing your own mini task alignment and also developing your own or filling in your own module with mini tasks. Yeah, nice thinking. I also wanted to point out something. I'll offer my takeaways. I completely agree. I think the explicit instruction with formative assessment section is something that is of great and critical value and needs to be discussed with the group. There's a nice, if for anybody that wants additional info or a text resource on formative assessment, there's a link here to Fisher and Frey. Checking for understanding. That could be a nice follow-up for a teacher leader to continue to use with the team if you're finding that the group's a bit shaky on purpose and reason for embedding formative assessment into their daily instruction. And then I actually really, this comparing instruction section I find it has a lot of relevance, especially for secondary teams or any team that is thinking deeply about disciplinary literacies and how they want to really bring in literacy-rich instruction into all content areas. So it's a really nice, I know the instructions can look a little unwieldy, but I find this might be something that's nice to prep with the teacher leader first before doing it synchronously with the group. But it asks the group to compare a few different mini tasks across different disciplines. So that's a nice case study, especially for the secondary teams, but definitely still for elementary folks thinking about literacy outside of ELA. So with your quick review of session 5 and 6 in mind, let's just focus on session 5 as we wrap up this session and consider what are the, sorry, I just popped in the chat there. How would you facilitate the session? So what are the parts that you think could be done for pre or post work? And kind of what we were already talking about, like what do you think must be done in a synchronous session with the group? Like for instance, I'm wondering what you think about the rubric section, if that can be done as pre-work before you have people come meet you to talk about the aspects of a mini task.
Are we chatting or just sharing verbally?
Oh yeah, just sharing out. That'd be great.
Yeah, I think the rubric selection could be done prior to the session. Like that could be the pre-work. And I feel like as they kind of look further into the session, they may think about the rubric more. I know most of my schools right now are not using LDC rubrics, but are using their own rubrics. So I feel like a lot of this here, I wouldn't want to spend the time on with them because it's aligned to the LDC rubric specifically, but I would have them select a rubric prior to.
Yeah. And also picture at this stage, if you're really in instructional cycle 3 with a team, ideally they've definitely seen the LDC student work rubrics before, and ideally they used it on that second module. Or if anything, they're more aware of the scoring dimensions on it. So it could be a quick bit of pre-work at this stage, or that's the ideal. Yeah, any other items, like even in the coaching tips section that stood out to anyone? In this section? Oops, sorry about that.
Sorry, I've got about 90,000 different screens up here at the moment, but I really loved Douglas Fisher and Nancy Frey. So I would be absolutely, I haven't looked at it myself, but I've looked at a lot of other of their things, and Why Check for Understanding. I would definitely be having a look at that. That's just something that I would personally be looking at because I love their work.
Yeah, great.
For explicitness.
Right. And I think this is just another good one. Like if I was in your PLC that you were coaching, I would relish any additional information that you were able to provide, or text resources, just different places to point me. And I think this is, like I was saying, I think we find a lot of people, they say the words formative assessment a lot and they hear them a lot from their administrators. But actually being able to internalize and then articulate their reasons for embedding the formative assessment in their own instruction is a little bit trickier. So
yeah, I think also that the do now, some of the do nows would be really good to look at in a PLC, particularly the one about, say, comparing instruction.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of looking at now, given that we're moving into sort of common assignments, where we're asking a team to sort of have that commonality running across a module. So where they may sort of adapting for different content areas, perhaps sort of looking at one of these tasks, maybe comparing instruction might be a useful group, and involve useful group discussion around that anyway.
So, well, great. Let's actually, now that we've taken this overview kind of look of session 5, a little bit of 6, let's take a closer look now at the work in session 5. So I'm going to ask you to look at 2 different sections here. We know the focus of the overall session is that mini tasks are formative assessments, and mini tasks provide explicit instruction of skills. So that all known, and knowing that's kind of the focus of this instructional cycle with teachers, I'd like you to look at the 2 sections. One is the characteristics of an LDC mini task, right here. And then the other is going to be what we've actually been honing in on here, explicit instruction with formative assessment. So I'd like you to look at those 2 parts. And then much as we did 1 or 2 sessions ago, I'd like you to put in the chat 1 key section or sentence or group of sentences that really stands out to you and that you think would be really effective for other teachers to see. So I'll put those directions in the chat, and I'll stop sharing my screen so you can take a better look. So let's actually, Jamie, let's hear from you. I'm curious about why that particular part stood out to you as something that teachers need to hear, need to focus in on.
So, I mean, when we think about explicit instruction, and we think, I mean, it would always, this was something that I always, it's a different language, but it's target, method, match, or goal, so it's like the intention, learning intention, learning goal, and the things that are happening in the class have to match exactly what are going back to the skill, and also align to what's being assessed.
Yeah. That to me, the section Jamie and I both pulled, let me show my screen here. It's just at the top of the explicit instruction with formative assessment section. That's the heart of the matter with backward design as well. I know we're talking about what explicit instruction is as well, but to me that exemplifies the big picture of the LDC module. So teachers identifying clear skill goals and then is building the scaffolds to guide students in learning each skill needed to progress toward the final product. So this sometimes, this can be nicely coupled with, if you have a module up on your screen, I don't right now, but you can imagine, just to show kind of the overall flow. We've got our performance task, our LDC teaching task, and then we're identifying all the skills and explicitly teaching each skill a kid needs to get to the end result. Very cool that we honed in on the same one. Let's see. Jane, tell me a bit about your thinking on your selections. It's nice we all honed in on different parts here.
I'll just unmute myself. What I was doing was highlighting specific sentences that I really liked, and what I wanted to do was put them underneath the headings, and it just didn't work. So I really liked the explicit teaching, the skill that's tied to the larger task. That was really, and at the same time, you're formatively assessing the student's progress. So therefore, you need to know where you're heading with the next skill that you'll be teaching. That's where I was sort of heading with that. And you also need to know where, if the students have got that skill, if they've acquired it.
Right. Yeah. So we're kind of all, we're buzzing around the same idea here, you know, sequencing explicit and skills-based instruction.
So it didn't make sense because I was just sort of pasting in.
No, but I appreciate, it's important to, I mean, this is the work, right? When you're prepping for a session, is head in, or a PLC rather, head in and identify like, what are those highest leverage sections we've identified, but then what are even the specific lines that you want to call out? And I actually think this quick practice we're doing, I guess you could extend it to 10 minutes if you needed, but even if you had 5 minutes in a PLC, I really like this, the guiding question of just having folks read 1 or 2 little sessions and then asking them to put 1 line, you know, into the chat. It's a quick copy and paste job for them. And it really does give them a specific purpose for reading during the PLC that I find can be really useful. So if any of you in your PLCs this or next week, I encourage you to try it out and then let me know how it goes. Just the quick guiding question, asking them to share a line or a section that stands out to them. So let's scoot along into session 6 now that we have a bit more of our own understanding of what's in 5, and knowing that the coursework does release teachers into session 6 where they analyze mini tasks on their own and then select them to put into their own module. So let me head into session 6, and you can join me on your computer if you'd like. Oops. Session 6 shares a good amount of mini task collections with viewers here. Let's check out the exit slip first, and we can see it's asking, or it's expecting that authors will analyze mini tasks for alignment to a skills list. It's a little bit bigger for you guys. And that authors will then develop their sequence of mini tasks. So what we were saying, hey, head in, go look at some mini tasks, make sure that you understand alignment within the mini task, from skill to prompt to standards to strategies to scoring guide. And then identify the ones that are going to be aligned with your LDC task and focus standards. So what I want to do is offer some time now. It's often pretty precious time to actually familiarize ourselves with some of the collections that are highlighted in session 6. So these mini task collections, they're resources for us around how to explicitly teach certain skills. So I'm going to go ahead and pop a couple in the chat here. I have 3 for you to take a look at today. So if you can, open up the Back to School collection on your screen first. And as you're doing that, and before we take a look at some of the items in the Back to School collection, I do also want to remind you of a resource that I truly keep close to me, particularly when I'm conducting peer reviews. It's an oldie but a goodie, and it's called the LDC Basics. And it's mentioned, I want to say it's in IC2, could be wrong about that. However, I find that this is just it's again, a quick 1-pager that really nicely elucidates what all those different components of the skills list are. We saw there was the show hide kind of menu in session 5 that also explains what the different sections in the mini task are and what their purpose is. This is a quick 1-pager that I find can really illuminate the purpose of each part of the mini task effectively for teachers, especially if a teacher leader could print it out for people. So to have this on hand in particular, I always like to note the scoring guide, because I find we've been talking a lot about explicit instruction, which is instruction that targets and teaches the students the focus skill for the mini task in order to move them along in their instructional sequence toward their final product. But something that I find teachers often need a lot of support on is the scoring guide, is the formative assessment part. Like, what is your reality check? What is your check that your students are actually showing you evidence of the skill that you're focusing on for the day? So I like to focus in on the scoring guide with folks, and I do like the explanation of the scoring guide that's offered in the basics. So it says scoring guides should identify elements to look for in the student product, things that will provide evidence that students are developing the targeted skill. It's that simple. And I think once that is illuminated for people, like, no, what are the things that give you evidence that your student developed the skill that you wanted them to develop today? Then teachers can pretty quickly shift away from looking for participation or looking for things unrelated to the skill of the day and go, oh yeah, actually, I just need them to show me 3 pieces of evidence of character reaction to a challenge in the book. Great. Onward we move. So one more resource. What I'd like to do is allow you, I'll put another 5 minutes on the clock here, and you can go ahead and head into the back to school collection or the mini tasks with UDL supports. We'll save the benchmark collection for when we come back together. So check out the back to school collection or UDL collection and identify 1 to 2 mini tasks you think your focus PLC that we decided we'd focus on for deep dive 2, the one that's in your brain, could benefit from or could easily build into their next modules. So I'll stop sharing. Got the directions in the chat, and I'll put 5 more minutes on our clock. Okay, let's take the next 30 seconds to a minute to pop in 1 or 2 of the mini tasks that you identified would be useful for the focus PLC you're thinking of. Yeah, there's so many different ones. Agreed on the UDL supports mini tasks as well. And a lot of those could be, they're nice entry points for people that have really diverse student populations in their room too. You know, whether it's a high percentage of like SPED and ELL learners, students coupled with learners who are receiving instruction in their first language, you know, a lot of different, these serve a lot of different student populations. So they can often be a good place to start for those teachers too, I've found. But I hope we'll see, you know, the idea is in giving you, and then ideally in giving your teachers some time just to explore, starting them off with collections rather than unleashing them into the library at large can often be pretty useful as a way to, again, hone their search, but also ensure success, you know, set them up to successfully pull at least 1 to 2 mini tasks that align with their module. So those are some high leverage collections that I shared with you, and that I'm hopeful you can share these mini tasks back to your PLCs from. It's the back to school collection and the UDL collection. One other collection that I want to bring up, and then we'll begin to wrap up here, is actually linked in the top of session 6 in the LDC background section. We've been talking all night about how these mini tasks offer opportunities for formative assessment of student skill development. And we've got a really nice, I think some of you may have seen this already. It's called our Benchmark Mini Task Collection. So it's linked here at the top of session 6. I also have it in the chat for you if you'd like to pull it up on your own screen. This is a really nice mini task for using mini tasks as formative assessment throughout the school year. These in particular focus in on helping the kids develop the skills in reading standards 1, 2, and 4. So citing evidence and reading explicitly for R1, determining main ideas and themes for R2, and then honing in on analysis of language use for R4. So these can be used as benchmark assessments to trace student growth across the year. And this is a good place to take people to if they, let's just drill into the middle school. Keep it middle of the road here. So you can see what you'll get in these collections is, let me drill into, let's see, it's R1 for grades 6 through 8. And you can coach your teams to use these mini tasks as the year progresses, remove some of the instructional scaffolds as needed as the year progresses, and then have their collection of student work to assess student growth as the year moves along. Let me see. Yeah, there are also some nice options to extend the work in most of these mini tasks as well. So just a little leave behind for you. Check out those benchmark collections. Identify if there are any that will be useful to share with certain PLCs. Especially, let's go back to Jane's initial question at the top of the hour. If you've got a teacher that's saying, hey, I really, really am liking these mini tasks, I encourage you to help them extend their thinking to consider how they can use the mini tasks to track student progress against certain skills that we identify in the reading standards. And now that we've done our own looking at the mini tasks and looked at some of the coursework about mini tasks and the significance of formative assessment, I'd love to spiral back on what Jane offered at the top of the hour. And Jane, I'll ask you first and then open it up to the group. Why have you thought that these mini tasks might be building kind of teacher engagement and excitement? Why do you think these teachers, or the one at least, found a lot of use in them?
The particular teacher that said it to me today is a TC guru, and I just sent Jamie some stuff that she's been doing, and what she actually found in the module that I actually sent to Jamie just this week was that when she started teaching it, she started looking at the skills that were in there, or the mini tasks that were in there, and she said, oh, they don't actually suit how I want this to sort of integrate with TC. So she went in and she found all these different mini tasks, but as a result of that, it led her off into a completely different direction, which her kids needed to go, and that was to succeed with the module. She had to go back and do close reading strategies, which her kids didn't have. So then she targeted close reading strategies, and what she came up with were some of these collections that you've just been showing tonight. And the writing that has come out of her kids has been phenomenal, but also the skills have transferred over into math. They've transferred over into social studies. They've transferred across the board. So the skills have been retained. And she just said, Jane, this is the best resource that she's ever seen to be able to integrate into a fairly closed program, TC.
Right.
So it's enlightened her and made her teaching even better. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win for her and the kids. Like, it's a win for the kids.
Excellent. You're illuminating the significance of supporting the teachers in, I mean, of course, we're interested in developing their competencies in designing a complete module, but that's not to say we should lose sight of the fact that we can really be supporting them in providing really explicit skills-based instruction in between larger assignments.
Yes.
And I feel like that's where a lot of people go, oh my gosh, this is really what I've been missing.
And that's what actually came out today as well, because she said, I'm using these in social studies. I'm using these mini tasks that she can do in so many different areas. And so she's utilizing the LDC library in the way that I always envisaged it could be used.
And that reminds me of Nada, one of your questions and takeaways from, maybe it was last week, I guess, when we were talking about enduring skills and how if we're really going to help teachers think about teaching kids skills that they can take with them as they age and leave school eventually, and shifting toward thinking about teaching kids skills and not just teaching kids certain books or certain content. This is a really nice way to do that, because like Jane was saying, you start to really understand that you can, or teachers can be targeting specific skills across their classrooms, or you can really be bringing in or honing in on certain skills across content areas, still tailoring it to the discipline. But that's where I feel like Jane, your teacher in this school might be set up really well to use these benchmark mini tasks.
Oh, absolutely. And if I'd known that they were there today, I could have pointed her in that direction.
I hope you send it to them, because I feel like they would be
I will.
really excited.
Yeah.
And so easy to say, okay, we all know we want to, I would steer them away from R1 at this point in the school year, but R2 and certainly R4. I think most kids at this point in the school year probably are pretty primed to do a little bit more language analysis than they've been. I feel like most people have been focusing on citing evidence and identifying theme for a long time. So nice to take them into 4. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. And don't you think too, like one of the things with one of my PLCs last week that came up was just as they're kind of entering into assessment season and a lot of focus on just assessments. And one of the things we were talking about is how we're going to look at the kind of like the standards and really look at how the tasks are standards driven. And we were even going to look at a task that they're going to have to do for the writing assessment.
Yeah.
But I think that these mini tasks could really be plugged in there too to talk about, okay, what skills do the kids need to know to take this assessment that's coming up, and then how can we plug in, and not to pull away from the modules, but to provide an extra level of support if they're feeling like, to make them see that this isn't something different, this is something that can be used because it's standards driven, that will help them. But I don't know. I think I'm going to explore it as another touch point.
I think that's a really good point, and really incentivize. I mean, again, if I was a teacher in your PLC right now and you brought these to my attention and I knew outside of my really sequenced instruction to move them toward a large writing product, I could be like guaranteeing that I'm preparing the students to develop the skills in R2 and 4 before they get tested. I would be very excited.
Yeah, I would be too.
Yeah. Okay, Kristen, you had a thought or a question you want to share with the group?
Yeah, just I love all the mini tasks, as everyone does, and I use the ones that you shared through the chat. But is there another easier way to find these other than just embedded in the courses? Like I tried to search collection mini task and I'm not really finding them. So I guess just what's the easiest way to find all these different collections of
Yeah, that's a good one. And that's part of why I'm sharing them with you now, like during this deep dive experience, is with the collections in particular, it's still a process of basically knowing that they exist. They're linked in the courses, of course. But what I would do is you bookmark them for yourself if you have a little folder, kind of a bookmarked collections in your web browser. I do that. Or what's something else? Anybody else have tricks to file away?
I think I'm actually just going to copy them right from your chat right now onto like a document so that I can send the whole document off to people, like a Word doc of all the different collections all on one document. So I'm taking them out of the chat.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like there are just, I mean, I'm often sending the link to like the 3 collections I shared with you are the ones to just have in your brain for all time. Like the UDL one, back to school, and the benchmark mini tasks. So as long as now that you have those in your repertoire, bring them up. When you get to the sessions where people are going in to find mini tasks for their modules, like those are definitely the 3 to take. I guess back to school and UDL in particular, if they're not yet thinking about the bench or using mini tasks as benchmark measures. Yeah, good question. Okay, I'm going to wrap up briefly. We'll close. Just want to get back to the syllabus here and check out what the homework, as it were, is for next time. So we're going to stay in instructional cycle 3, stay focusing on mini tasks. But next time it'll be a little less of the kind of review of the content and a little bit more of the using of the content to get more into your own mini tasks in your module that you're developing. So with that in mind, I would like you to just go in and check out IC3 sessions 7 and 8 for next time. And as needed, continue to work on your own module. So those next steps are in the chat. Thanks, Marina. Talk to you soon. And if you haven't yet, and you would like to sign up for a one-to-one workshop to look at your own skills list and or overall instructional ladder, I'm going to put the link in the chat for you to sign up. If you don't see any times that work for you, please just email Monique and I, and between us, we'll be able to accommodate. And Kristen, I'll double check my calendar. I should be able to do that time, but I'll get in touch with you after we wrap up. Okay, so yep, I'll see you next time. We'll check out sessions 7 and 8 in IC3, dig a little bit more deeply into your own mini tasks and take it from there.
Megan, is that in the collections? Sorry, common assignments, I beg your pardon?
Oh, that's going to be in design. Thank you.
Design.
Sorry, that's not. Yeah. We're sticking with design.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Jane. All right, all. Thanks as always.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you very
Have a
much.
good night, everybody.
Good night, Jim. Thanks, Megan.